They didn't come to the U.S. as part of a plan. They came to help their kids through college. But God had something else in mind, a harvest they had never expected. Among people the church sometimes overlooks. Stay with us. You don't want to miss it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of To the Ends of the Earth, a CMML podcast. My name is Aaron Fullen.
And my name is Joel Hernandez, and we are super pleased to be here with you again. In a previous episode, we interviewed Bard and Pam Pillette, and you'll recall that they had served in central Mexico for 15 years, preaching the gospel, making disciples, training leaders, really planting churches. But then in 1994, they moved back to the U.S. I think they had expected to live out their whole ministry long in Mexico, but they moved back to the U.S., to the state of Oregon, and there they have continued their ministry, reaching Hispanics for the last 32 years.
Yes, same ministry to the same people in a different location. So welcome again. Bard
Thank
and
you.
Pam. So glad you're here for part 2 because we want to hear the rest of the story. So this decision to move back to the U.S., was that a special missionary strategy, or what was the circumstance there?
No, there was no strategy, even though the mission group we were with had strategy, such as moving back and you had to choose a city of a certain size and join up with a certain kind of church and all that. It's just very simply, we reached the place where we felt we needed to get our 2 older children into college. And we weren't at a point in our lives where we felt we were ready to hand them off to someone else. And we have nothing against people who have their situation is different. Their children are different, but we felt we needed to come back for 2 to 3 years was all. It may have been unrealistic, but we were thinking they need to get residency in Oregon. Well, anywhere. We were really looking at a number of different states, and it ended up being Oregon. We didn't really think about Oregon, well, because we're both from there, but we ended up choosing a place where we hadn't lived, either one of us. So it wasn't to get necessarily back close to family. But we decided, and actually we were delayed a year and a half in that decision because we came up and we couldn't find what we were looking for, and felt like, well, what are we to do? Or it's counting down the time to get the residency for them. So that was really the main motive to come, and we were going to evangelize the best we could. I had no plans of starting necessarily a work, establish a church, because we wanted to return, and our youngest child would not be going to college and was being homeschooled, so that was not the problem. So it was really, the plan was 2 or 3 years, and we'll return to Mexico because that's where we enjoyed working and planned to continue to work there.
So what changed in that 2 to 3 year plan?
Well, being great evangelists that we are, and I'm saying that with humor because we're not, but we started talking to people every way we could, but it was, and you'll probably get into this a little bit later on, it was so different because it wasn't just people at the store or outside or the neighborhood. They're just, the Hispanic population was everywhere, and in different areas. And so there wasn't like an area, well, let's go hand out tracts in this area. That didn't exist. And so in the parks, we would have our meeting with our family in Spanish in our house. And my son played the guitar, and he and I would speak at the Lord's Supper meeting, and I would teach on Proverbs to the family. And then we'd go out early, like at 9 o'clock, 9:30, and go out to the parks and try to just meet people and talk to them. And anywhere we were, we also went to churches. Some churches, more conservative churches, said, we're in town doing this. If you have any contacts, let us know. At that point, zero. There just seemed to be no real interest. I think they felt they were skeptical at first, kind of like maybe we were looking for support. And I said, I'm not looking for support. I'm looking for contacts. People that that work in your nursery or work for your landscape company or whatever, and just introduce me to them, and I'll take it from there. And to get it shorter here, ultimately we did make contact. We did meet some people, and the work grew faster than some of our works in Mexico.
Faster than you expected.
Yeah, much faster. And before we knew it, it's like, well, now I can't leave. I'm stuck in a good sense. I'm stuck here in Oregon until this has elders to run it, and then we will return. So that's kind of what happened.
So where in Oregon is this? Remind me.
Southern Oregon.
Southern Oregon.
Medford is the biggest town there in Southern Oregon, and Grants Pass is a half an hour away from Medford.
Okay. And is there a heavy Hispanic population around that area or not?
That was part of the decision making. My brother-in-law had access to data on census. I'm not much into data to make decisions, but this town had a certain level of Hispanic, a decent but not great, because the bigger cities already had Hispanic works with fairly decent doctrinally speaking works, and this was one that was growing. And as it turned out, when we finally did get there, it turned out there was a big influx right as we were arriving. People mainly coming up from California, trying to get away from LA and the gangs.
Okay, I see. So what is there an industry that particularly they're working
they're orchards.
Orchards.
Orchards was the big draw in the beginning that drew people there, as well as some agriculture and some, working with farm animals, whatnot. And then they would transition into yard maintenance or working the mills, the sawmills, lumber mills.
It's important to note at this point that obviously the immigration landscape in America has changed drastically from a small immigration rate in the 70s of maybe 4% to now a sizable percentage of the U.S. being composed of immigrants. And I know that among our listeners, there may be many, many different thoughts about immigration as a political issue, but we're here to think about the issue through the lens of the gospel, through the lens of Scripture. What would Christ have us do? And specifically with Bart and Pam, what did God lead them to do in addressing the needs of the people that were coming to this country?
Yes, and so much of it is a matter of perspective, the viewing this as an opportunity rather than, with many issues throughout history that have been viewed as, what are we going to do? The Lord often provides an incredible opportunity, a wide open door that we're just not looking at because we're so focused on one side of the issue here. So the interpersonal part of what we want to focus on today, and the commonality in they need Christ. We need we needed Christ. We're all either part of His family or not, and that's really the Bible always divides into either you're with me or you're against me. We tend to try and categorize so far beyond what we should be categorizing and focusing our efforts there rather than, you know what, you either need Jesus or you have Him. And so for those who don't have Him, that's where your focus is. And I appreciate, in the last episode, if you didn't hear it, you should go back now and listen to it. But you both said you really respond to need. And there is a need in Southern Oregon among the Hispanic people there. And you weren't planning to stay there, and you've been there for, what'd you say, 34 years?
32 years.
32 years. Incredible. So thank you for what you're doing there, number one. Number two, is it any different? I'm sure our listeners are wondering, ministering to Hispanics in Mexico or in the U.S. Is there a difference there? And if so, how so?
Yeah, well, in our particular case, it was very, very difficult, the transition, in part because of what I said earlier about not just everyone you meet, your neighbors, everyone's just right there at hand. The other thing is that we had a lot of support in Mexico from other missionaries and whatnot that we could follow up on, or they could help us out with areas we needed help in. But also the people we're working with change from, it isn't that people are necessarily less capable intellectually, but their opportunities for education are a lot less in a rancho, what we call a rancho, a small village with very little work opportunity. That's why they end up in the States. And so their goals were different. We're here to work, and we're not here to change our religion. We're not here to get involved in anything in this life here. We're separate, and so there's and some of them were, I would say, not terribly open at the beginning. Is like, well, what are you after? Who are you? Why do you speak Spanish? It wasn't like, oh, hey, great, finally someone who speaks Spanish, So it was a difficult transition for our family. We were used to Mexico. My children were Mexican more than they were American, and they felt out of place. And the idioms, they struggled, and so the whole thing of starting a new work was different, and I myself struggled. Is like, what do I do? How do I start up conversation? Where do I go to find Hispanics? And then the education level was a lot different. But it isn't so much the education. It's kind of like big city. We worked in all big cities. There's just a different mentality. They're just more aware of the world and things around them and more interested. And when they come from the villages, there isn't quite the same openness, the same interest in something new and different. And so at first we were, it's just like a lot of things, like, oh, Lord, help me. I haven't got the foggiest idea how to make this work. And it was sort of like, well, I should have been at my apex after so many years in Mexico and starting different works. It's like, here I'm just starting all over again.
You understood the language and the culture, and now you feel like, I got to go back and learn how to reach these people.
Yeah, it was different. And it was disconcerting at the beginning when we didn't have much response in the first 6 months or so.
Yeah.
One thing that I remember is that in Mexico, everybody knew us. And so we were received always well. And in Medford, nobody knew us. They had no idea who we were. And because so many came from ranchos, they didn't even know there were Christians in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And so I remember feeling a little like Sarah, following Abraham to a land you do not know, even though it was the U.S., and thinking, Lord, if people are going to respond to us, they have to see you in us. And it isn't anything we can create. It's either there or it's not, and we just have to trust you to work in their hearts, that there's something that they see in us that's different.
Mm-hmm. You're probably listening to this podcast because you care about what God is doing around the world. And if that's true, you need to know about CMML's YouTube channel. Every month, CMML posts new video content that brings the mission field to your screen. Missionary updates from the field, regional spotlights on where the gospel is advancing and the need is greatest, and stories of men and women answering the call to take Christ's name where it is still unknown. Recent videos have taken viewers to Zambia, to Indonesia, across the Muslim world, exploring the spiritual landscape, the challenges, and the real opportunities that exist now. It's the kind of content that fuels prayer, stirs hearts, and reminds you that the Great Commission is still at work around the globe. Subscribe to the CMML YouTube channel at youtube.com/CMMLUS and turn on notifications so you never miss an update.
So what have you found, or whether it be one thing or a couple of different things that you have found to be especially effective in your ministry here in the U.S. in reaching them that maybe you didn't have to have in Mexico? What was it that eventually started helping you make those connections that were so hard at the beginning? Was there a common thread there?
Well, in that we carried over some of the things we did in Mexico. We'd meet people and chat with them and friendly, and we would invite them like to a carne asada, a barbecue thing.
Yeah.
So it's outside or in the park or whatever, and they usually would accept. And sometimes it would be maybe their relatives that would show up or whatever, and they were the ones more interested. But we found that people were responsive to things like birthday parties and cookouts and things like that. That well, in Mexico we didn't have the park necessarily in the big cities, but also we did finally get a couple of contacts that helped from English-speaking church or ministry that were kind of out of the blue, we say, that resulted in those initial first couples, and those first 1, 2, 3, 4 people, they began doing all the inviting. And they began every birthday party, they would invite us to come and participate in it. So then the work was so much more easily carried out by having them some hadn't even come to believe yet, but they liked what we were doing. And so we would always talk to everyone in a conversational style to talk to them about who we were, where we had lived in Mexico. That always helps. Where are you from? Well, we lived here. We know that town. We went through there, and we this and that. And well, what do you miss? Well, I miss pozole and this, a dish that they have. And boy, it'd sure be nice to get an invitation to eat that. Well, we'll have you over. And so that's how it began to click.
Yeah.
But it was after the first year is then it just kind of snowballed from people. And that's how it then spread to Grants Pass, the town 30 miles away, then it began to expand because a lot of people had interchange there. And so we really weren't going house to house to hand out tracts or anything from that point on. And we would many times as a small group get together in the parks. The weather was good, and we would have cookouts and have volleyball and this thing and that thing. And their Hispanic acquaintances would be coming to the park and come around. Hey, what's going on? What's this? And so those were some things that God used to, once again, help us out because we're slow learners.
So, church planting. You're planting churches
Yeah.
in that area?
Yeah.
How is that process? Is it? I'm guessing slow and hard to put together. Like not only are you ideally leading people to the Lord, but that whole idea of that process of growing in your faith and then stepping up into leadership positions and what does that process look like? And
well, I don't know what the experience is here, in the States, but having the Lord's Supper every Sunday, to me, has always been a great way to find men who want to be responsible, begin to speak, and begin to participate. And as they do that, I see things that are promising, and then begin to offer to study with them individually.
Wow. Mm-hmm. It's that mentorship,
Yeah.
discipleship.
And step by step, as they would respond, I would continue more rather than, well, all right, we're going to have a class on this. It was always just individual. We always had from the beginning, we'd have men's meeting where we'd read the Bible together, and we always had a meal, and we would switch around. Everyone would invite, and okay, it's at my house, and this week and next week at so and so's house, and it'd be a full meal. So we'd pray, memorize a verse, and have a 35, 40-minute study directly in the Bible, and then eat. And there's just a lot of conversation then, and it would go on for another hour or two. And the men seemed to really respond to that. And then with the women, the same way, seemed to bring about a certain cohesion and a certain situation where the men, I could involve the men to lead and teach, to find out, well, who are going to be elders here.
Yeah.
And in the first work in Medford, that was frustrating, because in Mexico, within 2 or 3 years, I had possibilities, and there I didn't. And part of that was the mentality: I'm returning to Mexico.
Oh.
I'm not here. Don't count on me. Some of it was even look. I don't even want to be the supervisor because it's too much responsibility. I don't want to be responsible for that truck with all those tools. What if they get stolen? Then I get blamed. So there was a kind of even with church things, sort of at the beginning of holding back a little bit, which I hadn't found in Mexico at all.
Interesting. So would you say a large percentage view it as a temporary stay?
In the beginning, yes. Now it's not so much.
Okay.
We're not getting all the influx of immigrants now.
Yeah.
In the last 10 years, it's just slowed to a trickle.
Oh, it's slowed down.
Yeah, with the border making it more difficult, and so we're not getting the constant new blood of people. There's still some, but it's just not the same.
But at that time, those who were coming were thinking in their minds, I'm coming temporarily. And so that caused them to hold back.
Yeah.
Interesting.
From leadership,
From
not
leadership,
not from being involved in the church work and all that, but the leadership part. It seemed. I mean, that's my take. On what was part of the problem. The other would be, well, that I'm not that great at getting leadership.
I'm sure that's not it. Pam, what about for you, ministry to the Hispanic women? How has that been for you?
It's been good. I think I have more personal relationships with the women here. I've been in their home more. They've taught me how to cook more. I'm not sure what the difference was in Mexico, but I really learned to cook Mexican food here.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that has been a lot of fun. And the teaching of the women, these are people, again, that had no church background. And so the Bible was just new to them, especially the being a wife and a mother, according to what the Bible says. Those were new concepts for them, and so it's been enjoyable for.
Yeah, our I mean, sometimes may be hard for people to grasp a little bit about how things work, but with our works, as it's been, at least up to this point, has been really, I would say, at least 80% to 90% are people who have never studied the Bible, never been in a church, and so there's a lot of basic things in the beginning that it takes a while for things to gel, but at the same time, there's a lot of excitement on their part that this is all new, and it becomes their social circle.
Yeah.
I remember after about 4 years maybe of being in Medford when they were saying there are Christians there in Mexico, and one couple went back to Mexico to visit, and so we said, well, go to Irapuato and introduce yourself, and so they did, and they came back and they said, people there know who you are. And they were just...
You're a celebrity in Mexico.
They were shocked. And it was like it made them a part of something. Not just this oddball that you're an oddball here in the States because people don't accept you, and then an oddball because you've believed in Christ. It was like... there's a whole family out there. That was really fun.
To be part of something bigger.
Really fun.
And we were able to build on that by inviting elders up from those who could get visas. We'd invite them up as well as missionaries. And so there's been a big bridge between all of our works in Mexico and up here. And then those up here who have been able to return have gone back and gone to camps, gone to the churches there and have spoken. And so there's a big interchange, and it's really helped a lot.
So the Christians here have encouraged and been encouraged by going to Mexico and vice versa.
Yes.
And there's these bonds that are being strengthened between the two countries.
Amazing. We're going to have what they call a mini camp for the girls and the teenage girls. And this year we have 3 girls from San Luis Potosí that are coming. One's going to participate. And then I think there's some other missionary kids maybe that are going to come. It's just so funny that, and kids here, if they can, they'll go to the camp in Morelia, and we're hoping they'll meet somebody to marry. But it's really fun, and their whole world is broadened. It's been wonderful.
And from a missiological standpoint, Aaron, I've got to say, the missionaries that have gone to Mexico and many other Latin American countries in the past have gone to and been very effective in cities. But in the small areas, the small towns, what we've been calling ranchos, those places have been very resistant to the gospel, to any missionary, to any evangelical presence. And really, it's what God has done by opening a door of immigration and allowing those people to come to the U.S. and to hear the gospel here, then be able to go back to their hometown. That those places that were resistant to the gospel are now opening up because of this phenomenon of immigration and the people that are reaching out.
That's right.
That's incredible. And which you can probably speak to this better than I can, Joel, but CMML changed a policy back in 2014, correct? With regard to ministering within the United States.
Yeah, that's right.
Because of this phenomenon.
And I would say that at some point, every missionary service organization in the Western world thought of missions in a certain way. It's us, and we send people to the rest of the world. It's the U.S. that is the mission sending country, and we send our missionaries to Mexico and to Latin America and to Africa, etc.
Yeah.
But now the whole immigration and the people movements all around the world are changing that landscape, and all of the mission organizations, CMML included, have been waking up to the reality that if God is bringing these people here, how do we then rethink missions so that we do release and encourage and promote the opportunities here in the U.S. among people groups, in some cases unreached people groups that are right here at our doorstep, or some of the communities that are very close to the gospel in other countries, like and if you look at the missionary per handbook that we have promoted in the past, that resource now has a new section called cross-cultural North America, cross-cultural United States, and that is people like Bart and Pam who are serving here in the U.S. but reaching out cross-culturally in some cases, crossing language barriers, crossing cultural barriers to reach with the gospel people that are here.
Which is amazing that this, especially when people are coming from countries that are difficult to reach, like you were saying. I don't have the accent, but rancheros, is that how we would say it? Say it again.
Rancho?
Rancho.
Oh, that's it.
You were close. You were close.
I added arrow to it. Ranchos.
There you go.
We're difficult to reach with the gospel, and they're coming here into our backyards, and they are right next door to us. And so the freedom that we now have to minister to these people in our own country, and then they can, like you were saying, go back home and have a presence in their home country. What an incredible network that we are able to create through this new concept of cross-cultural missions in our own land. So this is exciting, really, to talk about. I think I know the answer to this question, but would you say ministry in the U.S. has been easier or difficult, even though it's a similar, you're ministering to Hispanic people who you speak their language, their culture, but it's got to be different because it's here and not there.
Yeah, I think, well, as I said earlier, for us anyway, it's been more difficult. And we've made adjustments. Obviously, we've been here quite a while. I don't know all the intricacies of making it work, but one of the things that we do, though, to make it work better is to not get distracted by the American culture. And so we have limited our friendships purposely. We really don't have a social life with English-speaking people. Even though they seek us out and want us to be a part of them, we have to gently say, no, our focus is here on the Hispanic work, but also the whole problem of people returning to Mexico that finally have their papers and can come and go, and some of them then kind of lose focus to some degree on becoming part of the leadership in the churches that we've been starting, and so they become Americanized, which shouldn't be bad necessarily, but then the hospitality and all of that, it kind of begins to get and their children. This is the other thing: their children begin to speak English and are not as interested in the customs. They're not as interested in the life that their parents are used to. And so it creates all sorts of problems, as well as for the continuing of the work to encourage the young people to say, you have a special ability to be bilingual. Not everyone can be bilingual. You need to think about sticking with Hispanic work and coming back.
It's not cool.
Yeah. And we've found success with a few, a number of young people okay, you're right, and I want to serve here. And they're young men now, coming up on 30. They've had a college education. English is their preferred language, but they've dedicated themselves. No, I'm going to stay in Spanish.
They speak Spanish like we do.
Yeah. We're bad, but not as bad as some of them.
Would God use your business to accomplish his mission? Sometimes we think of God's provision only in terms of churches and full-time missionaries, but what if he also chooses to work through a business that's committed to honoring him? One of our missionaries shared this story with me. It was early in the life of their business. On the mission field, there were only 5 employees and the end of month was approaching. Payroll was due, but the money simply wasn't there. They had already cut every expense they could and stretched every dollar as far as it would go. Humanly speaking, there was no solution. So as usual, the team gathered together and prayed, "Lord, this is your business. We've done everything we know to do. We desperately need your help." But an hour later, the phone rang. The caller asked an unusual question. "Do you sell gift certificates?" The truth was they never had before, but they quickly answered, "Of course, we can do that." The caller explained that they wanted to purchase a $2,500 gift certificate as a birthday gift for a friend. Within minutes, the payment had arrived. It was what they needed to meet payroll. The team thanked the Lord, amazed at how he had answered their prayers, but the story wasn't over yet. 9 months later, the recipient of that gift certificate walked into their showroom. For a brief moment, they wondered, now we'll be giving away products we've already been paid for. Instead, the customer decided to purchase an entire outdoor kitchen, adding thousands of dollars beyond the value of the gift certificate. God had provided twice through the very same gift. When Abraham experienced God's provision on Mount Moriah, he declared in Genesis 22, "And Abraham called the name of the place, the Lord will provide, Jehovah Jireh, the Lord who sees ahead and provides exactly what his children need." God's provision is rarely early, never late. Most often, it's right on time. Philippians 4:19, "And my God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory by Christ Jesus." As you know, the question is never whether he will provide, but how he might choose to do so, this time in such a creative way. May we be found faithful in prayer, generous in giving, and ready to serve in his mission wherever he sends.
So, speaking about ranchos, once a person here in the U.S. gets saved and they have family members back home that they're concerned about and they want them to hear the gospel, there's a real opportunity that you've told us about that you have as a ministry opportunity from that person connecting them to their family back home. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we love this ministry. In fact, we even thought about maybe we can move back to Mexico and do this full time. We would go to these small little ranchos, about 4,000 people, and visit the parents of the person who had come to know the Lord. And they would always give us gifts and clothes to take so that we would be received with joy. And they're hospitable. And so we would say, "We're here in your son's name, and he sent this for you." And then they hug us and they bring us in and they give us food. And then we're talking to him a little bit, and we talk about the change that happened in their son. And then often we'll say, "Would you like to hear your son's favorite song that he sings?" And well, yeah. And so we have a box that has songs in it. And so we'll sing this song, and then Bard will usually give a real short little gospel message. And with the women, I give them hugs and tell them, "This is from your son. He loves you." And hug them really tight, and they hug me back and, "Please come back again." And they beg us to come back, and they'll tell their son, "Please tell him to come again." And the women greet me as if I'm a daughter in the name of their son, and there's true affection there. It's
This is the kind of reception no American missionary would get in Mexico outside of this context.
That's right.
No, in this particular place that we would go, there were several relatives. And so over time, we met some of the relatives. And then it turned out, well, there's another family that was in Grants Pass at the time. And so we'd visit her family as well. And so it got so we went to this little town and people would wave to us. Hello, they remembered us because when an American drives in there with a car, it's like everyone's looking and, on their doorsteps and, question, this is something big. And so we got to know the town got to know us.
Well, and these places are not easy to find. GPS has gotten a lot better, but in the beginning, they're not even on the map.
Wow.
These little towns, they're not even, we have to ask their kids, "Please give us good directions here." But a lot of times we have to stop and ask how to get there. They're a little nervous at the beginning. I mean, they're asking their kids, "Well, what do they eat?" They've never had a foreigner in their home. And so what can we serve them? Can they eat this? Can they eat that? And we come, but we're as friendly as we can be and chat about the change in their child. And they're aware of it. They're aware of the change, but they, is it real?
They know.
What kind of a group are you? Are you strange? What is this, a cult? They're not asking those questions, but they're thinking
They're
this.
thinking them.
And then they see us, and we'll chat for a while. But we, like Pam said, we're not singers, as anyone who knows us knows, but we give it the good try. And so the songs do resonate with them, especially this is your son or your daughter's favorite song.
Oh,
and I
my.
will explain it to them.
Yeah.
These are the words, and we'll give them a hymn book, the small book that we use, and so they can see the words. And in one of them, I asked Pam, I said, Pam, why don't you tell them how you became a Christian? What is it that made you believe? And so she talked a little bit about her being engaged, and that she came to believe in Christ and realized that everything was wrong about that relationship, and said she ended it right away, and she hadn't had the courage to do that earlier. Well, this lady, there's various ones, but this lady kind of leaned in and she said, "You what? You actually broke off that engagement?" And Pam said, "Yes, I did." And she started to get tears in her eyes.
She started to cry.
Yeah, and she got up. She had to get up and walk away for, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. And it's kind of like, who talks? A stranger talks to you about what really life was. What it was that brought this change to her life, to hear a real story that was painful, and partly probably as well because in their culture, in ours in the old days, but you just don't do that.
You don't?
Whether you're in love or not, that's not going to happen. But this lady, it really moved her, and so these things, and it takes a while. You got to keep going back, and they build more trust. They invite sometimes a relative. We would like to say that it's just blossomed. Well, it hasn't. It's been an investment though, and a favor in one sense to their children who can't return.
Can't be there.
And so that's been enjoyable. I enjoy it. It's always, every time we go into a new Ranchos, like, well, Pam, what are we going to find this time? What's it going to be like this time? How do we start this thing? What are we going to do? But it is.
And to see where these people that we've worked with, where they came from. What was their life like, and it's really
it's very
wonderful.
meaningful for a Mexican to know that you have visited their family, you've been with them, you've seen where they've grown up. That means a lot. And so I'm sure it's a two-way blessing to the parents to bring news of the child who couldn't be there, and bring good news and news of their transformation and news of their new faith, and to bring back news from the family to the immigrant and say, we saw your parents, we saw your family, and that's amazing.
It's a gift.
To give us a better idea of what your ministry looks like in Southern Oregon, are there any stories that you could share about people you've ministered to there, or experiences you've had over the past 32 years?
Well, yeah, the one, like I say, things that God is gracious to us to open doors, because we're not, I would say, gifted with evangelism like I picture some people, that it just seems obvious they're gifted. But certain things, in one particular was this situation where a friend whom I'd met in Texas, he was at a church in Grants Pass, and he asked me to speak there. And so I said, well, if anyone out there has a neighbor who is Hispanic, Mexican, please let me know. And up to that point, we hadn't had anything. I mean, it was just, pathetic is the word I use, just kind of like, I mean, it didn't even cross their mind that they had Hispanics in their world. Wow. And but this one single lady, single mother, living in an apartment building, called us up after that meeting and said, hey, I've got a neighbor here, and it seems like they're not getting along too well. And I don't speak Spanish, and they don't speak much English. What do I do? I said, well, where are you? We'll come over, introduce us to them. And so she did. Well, the couple was kind of strange to them, what's the deal here? But we just started chatting with them, and the one thing that God used to open the door, our daughter showed up for some reason, and she speaks much better Spanish than we do, but she was very respectful and introduced herself to, his name is Ephraim, introduced herself and talked to him, asked him a few questions, and she was just 17, I think then, 16 or 17, and he just, after she left, and she talked to the little girls, the one little girl they had, and after he said, I want whatever it is you're doing, because he said, I'm really concerned for my daughters, this culture, they're not respectful, they're not this and that. And so that opened a door. Then we talked about food, so they invited us to eat. And he was not very friendly, but he accepted, because his wife she was depressed and wanted to go back to Mexico. And this was the beginning of turning that all around. And he became one of the leaders. In fact, it was through him that all the work in Grants Pass, this town 30 miles away from where we were living, just began to blossom. Because he is a guy gregarious and he could give jobs to people. He had papers, and so he had a good position, and he's outgoing, and he just started inviting people left and right to have Bible studies with us and to his house, and it just opened up the whole, many people became believers because of that one invitation. Wow. And so that's part of maybe when people have asked, what can I do? Well, what that single mother did, her life was not in order, but she did want to see her neighbor come to Christ. So he introduced us to her, to her neighbor.
Yeah. And everything that unlocked by you meeting one.
Yeah. In fact, that's why I was talking to a fellow here that lives or has lived in Manhattan about showing up, because one of the Ephraim's nephew, who was in bad situation, is going to graduate from medical school here in Manhattan after a long bad story situation has ended up. All that's from that one conversation with this that opened the door from this lady, a young mother, single mother, introducing us to this couple.
That's amazing. From the moment of that conversation to the time he trusted in Christ, how much time would you say had elapsed?
That would have been...
It took about 6 months to get a study with him.
Yeah, and then another 3 months before he believed.
Wow.
He was a kind of a I don't know the right word. He is strong, a strong personality, and we invited them to our house, and they loved it, and we offered them a Bible study. When I say that, I say, well, we'll help you learn the Bible. I don't say, would you like a Bible study? They don't even know what that is. Would you like to learn how to use the Bible, see what it says about family, because you're concerned about your family, whatever, and then I give the gospel. Well, we were giving the gospel in just conversation, and he was polite but didn't respond. So then we just let it go, because we'd been to a number of things, and we finally went back 4 months later and just dropped in on him, and everything changed. And they said, well, yeah, come visit us again. And by the way, how can we get a Bible? We talked to the priest, and he didn't seem to want to. He didn't have any Bible. He didn't seem to even want to give us one. Well, yeah, we can give you a Bible. And then as we were leaving, they said, "Well, by any chance, could you kind of show us how to use it?" And it's like, of course. And that was the beginning. And they came to believe, and that was. But he became crucial to all the opening up to Grants Pass.
Wow.
And continues to be very effective, and won his nephew to the Lord, who ended up finally getting his life in order and going to college and medical school, and is graduating here next month.
That's incredible.
Something to celebrate. For
Yeah.
sure. So I'd love to hear from both of you for this. For our listeners, people who have heard your first episode and now this, clearly see your devotion and passion for what the Lord has called you to and the people that he has called you to minister to. What would your encouragement be? Because a lot of times we have much to say regarding the things we're passionate about. So this is clearly a passion here. How can we reach the immigrants, do better at it, sharing the gospel, but also just being a neighbor too? How would you encourage me, but also everybody listening, how we can do that more effectively and just be more willing to do that?
A natural way, I've seen this a lot, is being willing to help them in their language. And just spending time with them, helping them on basic things, just showing an interest in them, asking about their life, their homeland, and then if you have children and you have a party or things going on, they're playing, inviting them if they're neighbors, to invite them over and show them love, warmth. That's what they had in their country, was warmth and love and food, and so we can do that. Just let them be a part of your life.
Yeah.
The one thing a lot of times, well, I don't know their language and we could hardly talk, but almost always their kids can translate for you. And many times, if just reaching out and just trying to talk to them, people are impressed, because most people don't. If they can't speak English, well, it just ends there.
Right.
It's not my job, or I don't know. They're strange people, but to just speak slowly, use simple words, and be nice to them, and say, by the way, I have. I'd like to give you a tract in this, in your language, or I can get a Bible for you in your own language. And if you're interested, I know someone who knows your language. And like Pam said, inviting them to a kid's birthday party is pretty simple, but you invite them and show you really want them to show up, and then choose other people that are going to be there who will talk to them.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can have a birthday party, but if you have people who are just all interested in themselves, then the poor family is over there in the corner and no one's trying to converse with them.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things. We help people with language. They court things or whatever. It's you just offer your help, and if you don't speak the language, you find someone who does.
Yeah. We were talking before we recorded about the Good Samaritan and how the unlikely candidate who helped this person in need, and how poignant of a point that makes, that it's often people who are different, who maybe don't speak our language, who don't share our values, whatever the differences may be, that we consider the least likely to either come to our aid or we come to their aid. It just feels like we're too different. Of course, I can't. I can't help, or I can't be the most effective option in reaching them. But as the Lord is so good about doing, He often uses the unlikely candidates and those who have the biggest differences. When you put those differences aside and help each other, again, wide open door for
Show some kindness.
yes, yes. So I have really enjoyed these past two episodes with you both. I love hearing the stories that come out of just being faithful to what's right before you, whether that's in Mexico, whether that's in Southern Oregon. And we just need more examples of people who are just faithfully serving whatever the Lord's put on their heart, and seeing it to completion. And so, and such an encouragement to, there's a lot of immigrants here in our own country, which is, we just looked at our stats the other day, mostly Americans listening to this podcast. There's a lot of need here. And there is great opportunity for all of us to participate in meeting those needs, and letting the Lord handle the rest. He just needs us to be willing and to put ourselves out there and to do the good work, and let Him bring in the fruit. So thank you again.
Thank you
for
Thank
being
you
here
very much.
And thank you all for listening to another episode, and be sure to stay tuned because we have more episodes coming of our wonderful CMML podcast, To the Ends
To the ends
of the Earth.
of the earth.